What if Ron Weasley had been sorted into Hufflepuff instead of Gryffindor? Part 2. Hey brother! Guys, last week we began exploring the what might have happened in the wizarding world if Ron had been sorted into Hufflepuff, and what may have led to that outcome in the first place. Namely, after Voldemort attacks Harry as a baby, Dumbledore, recognizing that the Dursleys, despite offering the greatest protection in the bond of blood, would be their own form of abuse, and instead opts to find a wizarding family to take Harry in, namely the Weasleys. And while it seems like it would offer Harry and Ron a head start to their friendship, it also dials up Ron's insecurities way earlier in life, who is now no longer the chosen best friend of Harry Potter, but instead the adopted brother he will always be compared to. And wanting to stand out and loathing the constant shadow of the famous Harry Potter, Ron asks the Sorting Hat for not Gryffindor. As ever, the Hat takes this consideration seriously and sorts him into Hufflepuff instead. Thus, Harry and Ron's relationship is a bit strained. It's not as if they dislike each other, they are brothers in this situation, and it's not as if the rest of the Weasleys even know that Ron asked not to be in Gryffindor. But Ron knows, and as it's all a matter of trying to stand out and make a name for himself, he doesn't go out of his way to hang out with the rest of his family at school, and instead befriends Ernie Macmillan and Justin Finch Fletchly, or Jeff.
Justin Finch Fletchly, Hufflepuff.
And while this separation serves to help Ron feel more secure in himself, what doesn't help is that the plot just keeps happening to Harry. You know, real main character energy, am I right? Of course, Ron's over there like, oh, come on! First, he gets attacked as a baby. Now, as an 11-year-old. Some kids just have all the luck. I'm the bad guy for saying it out loud. But seriously, it's around every corner, isn't it? I mean, there's Quidditch, Norbert, the Philosopher's Stone, winning the House Cup. Like, you know the routine. Ron feels as overshadowed as ever. And yet, his brotherly relationship with Harry still proves vital when it came to the chess set, which Harry could only solve because he'd lost so many games to Ron over the years. And that's where we are heading into year 2, where, as ever, Lucius Malfoy is on the move with the diary and targeting young Ginny Weasley. So how does the plot unfold when her and Harry are siblings? Does Ron still break his wand and make his way down to the chamber with Harry? Today, we find out. Hey, brother! Guys, just want to remind you about our West Coast tour, which is happening this very month, where we're going to be starting in Seattle, Washington, going all the way down to Los Angeles, California. The dates are on your screen at this point in time. If you sign up for the VIP meet and greet, you will also be getting one of these signed posters by both Jay and I. And someone will actually get this exact poster. This is the official and the only non-replicable What If Ron Was in Hufflepuff one. So if you want to go check it out, link in the description down below. So as usual, let's start with the Dursleys. Harry and Dobby aren't there to mess up dinner, so Vernon probably just makes his deal with Mr. Mason and they get their vacation home in Majorca. That's kind of a bummer, actually. Anyway, back at the Burrow, Harry is having a way better summer with his family, where he is not pretending he doesn't exist, and similar to Christmas last year, he and Ron have a great summer together.
I'll be in my bedroom, making noise, and
Harry has access to his Nimbus 2000 all summer and is happy to let Ron, Fred, George, and even Ginny have a go at it while they play Quidditch. Harry even gets mail from Hermione and Neville. This is the part where Dobby usually halts all mail, but clearly making him feel forgotten won't work if he just has a loving family and access to his siblings. So it turns out living with the Weasleys is way better than the Dursleys. Who knew? Let's pause right there. All of us knew. But that doesn't mean Dobby isn't still up to his tricks, and of course still shows up one fateful night to give Harry his big and super vague warning about dangerous things happening at Hogwarts. But Hogwarts is my home! Except for here, where I love it! Harry get like a Scooch Irish there? That said, Dobby's visit does go a bit differently because living at the Burrow, rooms are tight, and he and Ron share a room. Thus, Ron is present for this conversation with Dobby as well.
Whoa! Yeah! What the bloody hell was that all about?
And also probably the ghoul. But who's he gonna tell? The pipes! Wait, that's almost relevant for this one. That sentence doesn't actually cause that huge of a difference to the story because Harry typically just tells Ron, Fred, and George all of these details right away anyway, and they just get to theorizing. Ron does, of course, though, have like a little bit of an eye roll here, like, oh my gosh, something else is happening to you, and just immediately assumes it's just some kind of a prank to get him to not go to school. Harry agrees it's possible, but doesn't write it off completely. Then, on the family trip to Diagon Alley, Harry is usually thrown off by the sudden request to master Floo powder and ends up in Nocturne Alley, but having grown up in the wizarding world, he's much more accustomed to it, so that's not really a problem at all.
What did he say, dear?
Diagon Alley.
I thought he did.
This means he doesn't accidentally end up overhearing Draco and Lucius's visit to Borgin and Burke's, which is fine for the plot, but Harry won't get introduced to the Hand of Glory, the opal necklace, and overhear Lucius mentioning all of his cool dark objects. Like how I pantomimed necklace, as if you guys weren't gonna know what that was. Necklace. No biggie though, because instead this trip's dark overtones come from Ron, who despite a good summer with Harry is feeling the looming shadow of school, and this trip will do nothing but remind him that despite being brothers, Harry has a different life than him. First is the trip to Gringotts, where Harry still has access to the gold from his parents, something that he's completely happy to share, but which Mrs. Weasley will have none of, but which Ron is soups jealous of. You mean he's super rich and the school got him the best broom on the market for free? Y'all, I'm not gonna lie, Ron might have a small point. And then there's, of course, Flourish and Blotts, where Harry gets ambushed by Lockhart, and Harry is of course as embarrassed and bothered by the encounter, but rather than feeling annoyed for Harry, Ron is just annoyed at Harry. That being said though, Lucius does still arrive and slips Ginny the diary, thus setting into motion the rest of the plot. And you know what? This time around, I think Arthur does punch Lucius. Because why not? It's okay, I know Arthur, he's a good guy and all. We haven't thrown that many punches in all of SuperCarlinBrothers. We'll give Arthur this one.
We have a very different idea about what disgraces the name of wizard, Malfoy.
Once we arrive at King's Cross though, Dobby is of course still up to his old tricks, and since it's Ginny's first year, Mrs. Weasley goes through with her in an order that totally makes sense and leaves Ron and Harry left to go last, and wham! Barrier. Now, you'd think Harry in this situation would have a little more sense to just wait for their parents to try and sort this out, but Ron suddenly recognizes an opportunity for a grand entrance and suggests, like usual, the car. Now, of course, they wouldn't have had the experience of getting Harry from the Dursleys like usual because, well, you know, he doesn't live there, but these boys for sure know about the car and what it can do. And thus, Harry and Ron enter the school year on an adventure together, flying high above London and being spotted by some muggles below, and it's an especially good experience for the two of them. They discover that it's hard to get solo time at home because of just how large the family is, and at school they're in separate houses. But now, Ron is really off on an adventure with Harry, really for the first time ever since the Mirror of Erised last Christmas. If you guys don't remember, that was a total gut punch of a scene. But being alone again reminds them of that adventure. Not that they talk about it, just each is able to reflect on how each other has their own struggles. And then from there, they crash into a tree. What are we going to do? Oh no! My wand! Out of breath. Whomping Willows, am I right? Not exactly the grand entrance that Ron had in mind, and as ever, Snape collects them before turning them over to their heads of houses. Now, normally this is just McGonagall because they're both in Gryffindor, but of course this time Sprout will have to be there as well, and Ron gets expelled. No, I'm just kidding, but can you imagine Sprout just has this like horrible rigid side to her? That would be so out of character. However, no, she is fairly upset that the Whomping Willow is all beat up, as it is a rather rare and unique plant. And this extra layer of disappointment, coupled with the otherwise very positive day he's had with Harry, leads Ron to admitting that it was his idea to take the car in the first place, and they both get detentions. It's a seemingly similar situation to usual. Harry thanks Ron for taking the Badger's share of the blame, and again, the two seem closer for having shared the experience until the following morning. Letter from Dumbledore last night. I thought your father would die of shame. We didn't bring you up to behave like this. You could have gotten your brother killed. Absolutely disgusted. Your father's facing an inquiry at work. It's entirely your fault. Yeah, the Howler. Even in the main story, Ron is extremely embarrassed by this letter, but this time it is of course much, much worse, because usually Molly's anger is targeted at Ron because she has no grounds to be upset with Harry as she is not his mom. This time, the letter from Dumbledore explains what Ron himself told them the night before about it being his idea, so that's directing her anger, but that she is only mad at Ron and not Harry only serves to fuel Ron's feeling of favoritism. And this really seems to be the theme of Ron and Hufflepuff. Like, whenever they inch closer, the other shoe always seems to drop. Things only continue to reinforce these feelings in Ron as well, as all of the students are currently enamored with Lockhart and his heroics, and Lockhart is still playing favorites with, you guessed it, Harry. And speaking of playing favorites, let's get into day one of Herbology. Should be a safe place, right? Where a Frosty with Ron Professor Sprout is kicking things off with mandrakes. Fittingly, Gryffindor and Hufflepuff actually have this class together, and Harry, Ron, Jeff, and Neville grab a table together. As a reminder, Jeff is Justin Finch Fletchly. And you might be just like a little bit unsure where Neville might land in this particular situation, because there's of course this scene. Versus the knowledge that Neville goes on to be a bit of a Herbology superstar. My personal inclination this go round is that in part thanks to a bit of extra confidence from having Harry as such a close friend, and Neville's role in bypassing the Devil's Snare in the obstacle course last year means that Neville and by proxy Harry are blooming brilliant at Herbology. And as you can imagine, Ron doesn't exactly love the critical acclaim from Sprout at Harry and Neville. Jeff, though, being a good friend to Ron and recognizing the situation, offers Harry some critiques on how he might better handle the mandrake, which Ron does actually appreciate. From there, further injustice seems to ensue when Harry and Ron's detentions for crashing into the Whomping Willow are assigned. Ron will be scrubbing trophies while Harry is going to be responding to fan mail with Lockhart. At least Ron wasn't polishing Harry's trophies, am I right? You know what? It's our story. He was, and all the other ones too. Harry, as always, hears the basilisk for the first time during detention, but can't source it, and Ron memorizes Tom Riddle's name without realizing the importance of it. Then we've got a few sequences that otherwise remain the same as always. Harry is practicing super hard to rally against the Slytherins' Nimbus 2001s and tracks Mud into the castle. Filch gets mad and takes him to his office. We've, of course, got the quick spell letter. Nick has Peeves destroy the Vanishing Cabinet. Harry owes him 1 degrees to attend the Death Day party instead of the Halloween feast. Neville and Hermione, of course, join Harry for the Death Day party occasion out of #solidarity. Mrs. Norris is attacked, and Filch accuses Harry, publicly, in front of everyone, including Ron, of opening the Chamber of Secrets.
You've murdered my cat.
This begins to shift the tide away from Harry for what feels like the first time ever, as theories that he is Slytherin's heir begin to circulate the castle. It's also a shift for Ron, attention-wise, who has been shamed by the Whomping Willow incident in the Hufflepuff common room, but is now the obvious Harry Potter expert everyone wants answers from. I don't think that Ron really thinks that Harry is behind any of this, but he is enjoying all the extra attention. However, fast approaching is also the Gryffindor versus Slytherin match, where basically the whole school's frustration with Malfoy's buying his way onto the team is surging for a Gryffindor victory. Dobby's bludger makes things interesting, but as per always, Harry snatches the snitch and has his arm broken and then deboned, thanks to Lockhart.
Yes, well, that can sometimes happen.
Then old Dobbert appears to Harry in the night to confess his tampering, and instead of being anxious to report the information to Neville and Hermione, the person Harry actually wants to talk to the most is Ron, who had previously been there for the first encounter with the elf. Oh, you know what? The other honorable mention detail that happens on this night is that Colin Creevey is trying to canonically bring Harry grapes in the middle of the night and gets attacked by the basilisk. That still happens. Anyway, Harry wants to talk to Ron about what happened, but before he has a chance, the dueling club is announced, and Harry, of course, wants to go and learn everything that he can. And we all know how the dueling club plays out. Snape suggests Harry versus Malfoy. Malfoy summons the snake. The snake aims to attack Jeff when Harry calls it off of him. And it looks bad. Heck, it usually looks bad even when Ron is squarely in Harry's corner. A boa constrictor told you it had never seen Brazil? Ron repeated faintly. So, said Harry, I bet loads of people here can do it. Oh no, they can't, said Ron. It's not a very common gift. Harry, this is bad. Obviously, this go round, the boa constrictor hasn't happened, so Harry is just acting on instinct and learning alongside everyone else that he can speak to snakes. And to make things worse, Ron is really close friends with Jeff, being in the same house, plus it furthers the theories that Harry is opening the Chamber of Secrets. Ron confronts Harry about the entire situation the next day, accusing him, like everyone else, of trying to attack Jeff, and wondering why Harry, his own brother, never told him that he could speak to snakes.
You're a parcel mouth. Why didn't you tell us?
Something that Ron, the supposed Potter expert, had failed to mention during all that attention he was getting. Ron, seriously, you forgot that part. I didn't forget, I just didn't know. You can't forget things you never knew. Harry, of course, explains that he was trying to save Jeff, and he didn't realize that he could talk to snakes until afterwards. He thought he was speaking English.
I spoke a different language.
Ron is pretty skeptical of all of this, but then Harry goes on to tell him about Dobby showing up in the middle of the night again and how he was the one who stopped them from getting on the train and set up the bludger. Ron is understandably pretty alarmed to hear this, but it does offer a bit of a release valve as Ron now has someone to firmly blame for the entire car situation. Dobby. Ron leaves the conversation agreeing to tell Jeff that Harry is sorry for scaring him and he really was just trying to help. Unfortunately, once again, this progress made between Ron and Harry will only be brief because it's not long before another attack happens, and as always, it's Jeff. Who's that girl? It's Jeff! Y'all, we can't make this stuff up. Well, okay, I mean, I guess a little bit we can, but like, do you see what keeps happening? Harry and Ron keep getting so close, and then it gets taken away from us again.
You being stupid.
Yeah, that's me. Ron Weasley, Harry Potter's stupid friend.
Is anyone else just missing Ron and Harry being BFFs? Or as I like to call it, Befs? Anyway, Ron's mad at Harry again. Just in time for Christmas, too. Harry, Ron, and Hermione are, as usual, all staying at Hogwarts, and Harry, Neville, and Hermione have still been busy brewing the Polyjuice potion to try and question Malfoy. Ron is notably down during the holidays, what with one of his best friends up in the hospital wing, and decides he's going to go and visit Jeff after dinner, when instead he spots Harry hiding behind a staircase. Attacking more students, said Ron in a somewhat joking manner, not believing it, but knowing it will still sting Harry just a little bit. Harry looks alarmed at having been spotted and sheepishly answers that, yes, he actually kind of is, but seeing there is no way of avoiding an explanation, tells him that he's going to try and get some of Crabbe and Goyle's hair to go question Malfoy. A totally normal thing that anybody can be doing at any point in time, but especially on Christmas. Ron, who is just about to go visit Jeff anyway, now seizes the opportunity to get to the bottom of the attacks and insists that he is coming too. Harry, without much of a choice, allows it. Also, Neville, in case you are wondering, is just at home for the holidays. And so things play out like you may expect. Hermione agrees to let Ron come, but then gets turned into a cat lady, and Harry and Ron must go at it alone. Of course, Malfoy doesn't tell them anything new, but does joke happily at the thought of Hermione dying and calls her a mudblood.
As for me, I hope it's Granger.
Ron, who has far less contact with Malfoy than usual and isn't even that close to Hermione, is still a proper blood trader, which as a reminder is a good thing, is appalled at this guy's awfulness. And so, before Harry/Goyle could stop it, Ron/Crabbe had reared back Crabbe's much larger ham fist and punches Malfoy right in his dumb face. We don't really throw punches here at SCB, so you know what? We're gonna let Ron have this one. Plus, as you can see here, we paid the punch budget. Totally forgot about the whole Whomping Willow sequence. Expensive. At that moment though, Ron's red hair starts to burn through Crabbe's roots and the two make a run for it. They make it all the way back to the girls' bathroom without stopping and before finally locking eyes and falling onto the floor, just howling with laughter. Next up though from there, Harry will find the diary in the very same girls' bathroom one day and quickly figures out how to use it and learns that it was apparently Hagrid responsible for last opening the Chamber of Secrets. Ron with Jeff in the hospital wing and Ernie pretty sure that it's Harry doing the attacks and Ron knowing it's not, finds himself hanging out with his brother during mealtimes in the Great Hall where Harry tells him about the diary. From there, Ron is also able to add in that T.M. Riddle got an award for services to the school 50 years prior, but is surprised to hear about Hagrid.
Because I kept burping up slugs over Tom Riddle's trophy.
Meanwhile, Ginny is curious what Ron is doing at the Gryffindor table, so she pops over to say hi and overhears the diary discussion, and Ron, wanting to share his newfound openness with his family, fills her in. She looks absolutely horror-struck. And boy howdy, I wonder why. We all know why. We've all read the books. And if you haven't, you're watching this video, then wow, thanks for being here. But you kind of know what happens from here. Ginny steals the diary back, which causes Harry to hear the voice in the walls again because she's writing in the diary, which means that she's being controlled by the basilisk, which means she's doing the voice in the walls again. Well, she's not. The snake is. The snake is a girl, though, I think. This sparks Hermione to realize that it's a snake, even specifically that it's a basilisk, but she gets attacked before she's able to tell anyone about it. And interestingly, this happens right before the Quidditch match between Gryffindor and Hufflepuff takes place, which usually fuels the tension between Harry and Ron. Hermione's attack, though, strikes a chord with Ron, who realizes what a blow this must be to Harry and finishes off any lingering concerns that could have remained that Harry could have been somehow involved, and suggests that they go and see Hagrid, which they do later that night. Neville does come too, as he's still pretty involved in all of this investigating. He just wasn't there for Christmas and all the Polyjuice punching. At Hagrid's, the three boys watch as Hagrid and Dumbledore are taken from the school and get the tip about the spiders, which they soon after follow into the woods. They encounter Aragog as usual, who tells them that Hagrid was framed and then he eats Neville, not before punching him in the face. No, I'm just kidding, but can you imagine? It's only almost always you, Neville. But as the narrators of this story, it isn't. Thankfully, the car shows up to save the day, and Harry now can tell Ron that he doesn't care what their mom says. Flying the car to school was bloody brilliant. Things are honestly looking up for the brothers, and when they get back to school, Ron realizes that Moaning Myrtle might have been the victim of the monster 50 years ago. If they could just get a chance to talk to her, maybe they could confirm this theory. So later that week, Harry and Neville are able to slip away from Lockhart's escort to go and try to talk to Myrtle, but get intercepted by McGonagall, who they lie to, and go see Hermione, where they learn about the basilisk, but before they can tell anyone, y'all, that whole convoluted mess is just in the books. That's how it goes. Ginny is taken to the Chamber of Secrets. Crud muffins. Harry and Neville decide that they need to at least tell Lockhart what they think is in the Chamber of Secrets and where they think it is. Harry decides to also go get Ron, as it is their sister who's down there, and tells Neville they'll meet them at Lockhart's office. But when Harry and Ron arrive at Lockhart's office, they find Neville on the floor, dead.
Why is it always me?
I'm messing with you guys. He's just unconscious. And dead. It's like as soon as Ron and Harry are friends again, Neville immediately feels like a third wheel.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
We have to include Neville because he's Harry's friend.
They immediately fear that Neville has also been attacked by the basilisk, but then Harry spots Lockhart, wand still outstretched, and immediately disarms him. What have you done to him? Harry and Ron demand. Wandless and with nowhere to go, Lockhart starts telling his story, and Harry and Ron force him along, as per always. They then travel through Moaning Myrtle's bathroom down to the Chamber of Secrets, and the story unfolds how it usually does. The cave-in separates Ron and Lockhart from Harry. Lockhart seizes Ron's bad wand, blasts himself instead of Ron, and dies. No, I'm just kidding, he just wipes his entire memory.
Who am I?
I fear we've been given too much power. Lockhart's memory is erased. So Harry is forced to go on alone and faces down Tom Riddle and the basilisk, summons Fawkes, pulls the sword, stabs the basilisk, kills the diary, saves the day. You know the drill. And you know who else does? Ron. 200 points to Gryffindor and Hufflepuff. Awards for special services to the school. Dobby is free. Everyone is happy. Or so you may think. Harry and Ron have been as close as ever over this past stretch. However, despite braving the chamber together, the outcome almost seems lopsided. Like, Ron's 200 points for Hufflepuff are great, but feel kind of pointless when Gryffindor gets them too and wins. Like, yay for the Hufflepuffs coming in second, but who cares about second? And by Harry pulling the sword of Gryffindor, he more than locked his placement within the house that the rest of the Weasleys so resonate with. The house Ron specifically asked not to be in. Plus, all Molly can do as soon as she sees her children is thank Harry over and over again for saving Ginny. Even Fred, George, and Percy are treating the situation as if Harry was the only one down there, never mind the fact that Ron is the one who realized where the chamber was in the first place. And as such, for Ron, it's serious salt in the wound, but it might just be something else as well. Fuel in the motivational tank. Next year, he'll make himself known. Maybe. And in case anybody's wondering about Neville's memory, not to worry, he's still friends with Harry, still knows he's a wizard, all the rest, he just completely forgot about Lockhart, which should be interesting. But guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you want to check out part 3, that will be right over here as soon as it is uploaded. In the meantime, it might just be like a blank box hanging out, so that's kind of weird. I wonder what it does. Until next time, bye!